This is Kurt Mallory, and you're listening to Indiana State Football on WIBQ 97.9 FM.
Good evening and welcome to 7th and Elm Bar and Grill, corner of food and fun for tonight's Indiana State Coaches Show. We got a packed house here tonight. Good to see a lot of coaches here in attendance. We got head coach Greg Lansing there in the back. Head coach Mitch Hannes is going to join us. It's going to be a special weekend for his 2019 team that won the Missouri Valley Conference Tournament. They're going to be getting their championship rings this weekend. We're going to talk to Coach Hannes about that memorable season and look ahead as well. We'll also have Makai Ware, who will join us here on the show tonight. Defensive back for Indiana State, as well as Coach Broomy. Dion Broomfield will be our assistant coach for Indiana State. And we're always joined by this guy. Well, we weren't always joined by it. We didn't miss you a week ago. But Coach Mallory back here at the corner of Food and Fun, 7th and Elm. Coach, I know a tough weekend in Vermillion, South Dakota. Did not go the way you guys and the team wanted to. What has been the biggest takeaway in the aftermath and the time that you've had to watch the film and assess the loss?
Well, I think, obviously we were disappointed in the way we played. Knew we had a lot of plays that we left out there. Didn't get the job done. Came back, learned from the film, watched it yesterday, and today's a new day. We're moving on to the next week. We're going to have a great game week. We're going to prepare this week, and we didn't get the W last week, but we're going to work to get the W this week.
I feel sometimes as fans or even broadcasters to a point, we were talking throughout the last 2 weeks, and you said it's been a really good week and a half of preparation. You felt scout team gave really good looks. Guys were locked in. When you know you have such a good week and a half of preparation and just come out on a Saturday and not live up to the expectations that you guys thought you would, just what does that do in terms of a frustration factor for you guys as a staff? Because you really didn't see that coming, because you really genuinely liked what you were seeing preparing for that game.
Well, it is one game. It's not one season, and that's how we've approached it. We had a similar situation occur last year with Northern Iowa. Felt like we'd go in, we'd play a lot better, but we weren't going to let one game dictate the rest of the season, and that's certainly what we were able to learn from and move forward. And we're competitive in every game, and although we didn't win every game from that point on, we were very competitive. Could have gone either way. Lost 2 close ones after the Northern Iowa, and then we're able to finish with 5 straight victories. So that's the approach that we took. Obviously we got humbled. We got a lot of work. We lose and win as a team, and we've got some improving to do, and we're going to get better this week.
I know each and every week as you go throughout a season, you, of course, want to win each and every game and want to hopefully you go through that without as many tough learning lessons as possible. But you mentioned that the team did get humbled over the weekend. How important is it now for your guys to respond to that humbleness in the right way and how they come back to work this week?
Well, I think you have a veteran group. It always starts up front with the offensive line, and it's always going to start there. And we're going to start with those guys. And, we've got a young quarterback who went in there and did a nice job. We got a veteran group of wide receivers, played a lot of football, and we got a veteran group of running backs. So it's not a group that's going to panic. They're going to pull together. And then defensively, same thing. I've seen the way that this defense has played 3 out of 5 games. Very capable to play very well. We're going to get back on track. It's going to start with our offensive line on offense, and it's going to start with flying around on defense.
When you go through a game and you always look at things from your perspective and you understand, okay, this is where we could have cleaned up to maybe make this a little bit better for us. And some of that, too, you got to tip your cap to the opponent and the plays they made, which you did from an Austin Simmons perspective in South Dakota in their offense. But looking at your offense, what was the biggest frustration in not being able to control the line of scrimmage in terms of running the football, which you guys pride yourself on each and every week? And really that's always one of your main goals.
Well, I think we had to start fast. You're playing a team that moves the ball very fast, has a high tempo. They're able to go down and score right away. We had our opportunities to get off the field on 3rd down, weren't able to do it. They went down and scored. Then we got a counterpunch, and we had our opportunities. Didn't take care of the football the first half like we need to. They were able to capitalize. Had an opportunity to punch one in late, and weren't able to do it. And next thing you know, it's 24-0 at half, and it's hard to play catch up with a tempo team, and that's where we're at.
Gunner C got the start over the weekend. I asked you this after the game when you didn't have a chance to watch the film yet, obviously, but now that you guys have had time to watch, what did you like about what Gunnar did? He was 23 of 38 in the game. He had 239 yards through the air. For a young guy, what was kind of the main message for him that you guys had as a staff in the aftermath?
Well, I think when there was times he took some hits, and as a defensive coach and you watch a quarterback and how he stands in the pocket, I mean, he's not looking at the rush, he's looking downfield. And he stood in there, he showed a lot of toughness. And he went in there with some confidence, threw the ball with some zip, commanded the offense, showed some real promise. Wasn't perfect by any means, but we can grow from it. And that's exactly what we'll do. We'll grow from this, and I just know he'll be so much better from game 1 to game 2.
You mentioned that growth from game 1 to game 2. He hadn't been able to get into a game yet, so that was not only his first game for you guys, that was his first start as well on Saturday in a very tough environment as well in the Dakota Dome. But knowing that, and I asked you this earlier in your press conference, but to follow up on it, the importance for Gunnar now to actually have tape of a game to learn from compared to just tape and practice when he's going up against guys that he sees each and every day.
Well, yeah, and they've got a good front. We knew going into it they were very active. They were going to move a lot. They have a fine defensive lineman, defensive end, Greenfield. He caused a lot of havoc. And to get your first start against a pretty darn good defensive line says something, and he had pressure throughout, stood in there, did a nice job, and bounced right back up. So I gained a lot of respect for him. I knew he was going to do a fine job, and he'll just get better this week.
We talked about it, and you actually hinted at it in one of your answers to me in the opening segment was, yes, you're going to, of course, watch the film and learn from the mistakes that were made this past weekend, but how much of it is, too, because when you look at a score like 38-0, you may feel like, man, that's a long way to have to make up in just a week short of time, but as you reminded your team of over the weekend and on Sunday was you're not far off. Why is that the case with your team when maybe the result on a Saturday was lopsided in one direction, but you guys as a staff know and are trying to reiterate to your guys it's not as far off as what it may seem?
Well, you see it. Unfortunately, it happens. Again, it's one game. It's not one season. And, you're going to have games where things kind of don't go your way. And then you're going to have games where they all go, it goes your way. Yeah. And I know those are right around the corner. But, we're going to stay together as we always do. And in college football, you have injuries. Everyone in the country is having them. And it's the next man up mentality, and that's been always the approach. And but we're going to go back to work. There's only one way we know how to do it, and that's together. Going back today and tomorrow and the rest of the week, and practice hard and improve on things we need to get better at.
We'll get into Western Illinois later on in the show. Head coach Kurt Mallory is next to me. This is the Indiana State Coaches Show, live from 7th and Elm Bar and Grill here in Terre Haute, Indiana. Our next guest on the show is a guy I know you have a lot of respect for, Mitch Hannes, the head coach of the Indiana State baseball program, who, of course, played here, had a lot of success as a player, went to the College World Series as a player, now able to win the conference tournament for the first time for Indiana State as a coach since 1995. What was your most favorite part of watching that team play towards that run at the end of the year? Because I know you were busy focusing on you guys throughout spring ball, but you'd always, when spring practice would be over, you'd run over to Bob Warren Field to try to catch the tail end of a game.
Well, I just love the way Coach coaches, and there's a lot of toughness in that group, and I just love watching his teams play. They play with a lot of grit, and they just they come out every day. They play hard. They practice hard, and I just love watching the way he coaches. And his team's fun to play, or fun to watch. I was able to go down to Florida and watch them with my family, and every opportunity I can to watch them. I love doing it, and just so happy with the success that they had this past year.
That seems like a long time ago. You guys were in Fort Myers.
Yeah.
Seems like a long time ago. Also seems like yesterday, too. Yeah. You talk so much about the community in terms of not just the fans and being interact with the fans, but you guys as coaches being able to interact with each other. I think everyone internally in the athletic department knows how much of a prized possession that Coach Hannes is in terms of the knowledge he can bring from so many different areas. For you, with this being your first head coaching job, how much have you leaned on Coach Hannes and kind of had him as a guy that you can go to and try to get advice from and move on?
Well, quite a bit. I'll always make my way down there and stop in and see Coach, and we kind of sit around and talk and talk about, some of the things we're both going through. And, we both have challenges. There's not, and neither of us feel sorry for each other. We just kind of work through it and bounce ideas off each other. And, the same thing goes with Coach Lansing. Coaches, I normally go down, I stop by Coach Hannes' office, I stop in, I see Coach Lansing, and we all support each other. Coach Lansing was on the trip last week. Right there, I almost gave him my headset, see if he could do a better job during the game than I was. He was standing right there, but I just really enjoy the relationship and the support that we give each other throughout the good times, because we're all there, and that's the thing that you appreciate, is we all go through the same challenges. And when you're in coaching, we both understand that you have good days and you have bad days, but you stick together and you're going to get through it. And it's nothing, more glorifying or gratifying to get through it and start winning. And that's what we've all been through, so we all support each other and know what we're going through.
Of course, you grew up in a football household, but did Curt Mallory ever play baseball? Did you ever dabble in it at all growing up?
Yeah, well, a little bit, but not very good.
Not very good? You didn't have the skill set?
I like watching it. I like watching. I'm not not much of a player.
Well, maybe at some point we can work with Coach Hannes to getting you taking a BP session at some point in time at Bob Warfield.
No,
you think we can work that out at some point?
I'll let Coach Broomfield or one of these other coaches do that.
One of the younger guys do that. Well, Coach, we'll catch up with you at the end of the show and preview Western Illinois and homecoming. That was head coach Curt Mallory. When we come back, we're going to be joined by head coach Mitch Hannes of Indiana State Baseball to recap what was a magical season a year ago for the Sycamores. You're listening to Indiana State Coaches Show live from 7th and Elm Bar and Grill.
2 on and 2 out in the 8th. Pitch hits it deep right field. Sandman back to the track, to the wall. He leaps. He doesn't get it. 3-run home run, Chris Ayers. His 3rd home run of the tournament. There's the insurance. Brower ready. Vandy at the plate. The pitch. Swing and a miss. Sycamores win 9-5 as Tyler Brower strikes out Luke Vandy.
Duncan gets a good rip into it, right center field. Back on it, Sandman at the wall. Vandy looks. It's gone! It's a leadoff homer! Leadoff home run for Clay Duncan! As Chest, the 3-2 swing high, deep to right. Sandman, wave goodbye to it, buddy. It is gone. Sycamores pour out of the dugout again, and it's a 2-run shot for Robbie Enriquez. He reached on a walk, but 0 for 2 in this game. The pitch, swing, popped up. This should be easily playable. Robbie Enriquez makes the grab, and for the first time since 1995, Indiana State are champs of the Missouri Valley Conference. Welcome back to the Indiana State Coaches Show, live from 7th and Elm Bar and Grill. Big thanks to Coach Mal for starting off the show. And as you just listened to, those were the highlights, the montage of what was a remarkable season for the Indiana State baseball program, winning the school's first Missouri Valley Conference Tournament Championship since 1995. Head coach Mitch Hannes is our guest. His team gets their championship rings this weekend. A lot of that team coming back this weekend. Coach, really appreciate the time you jumping on the show here tonight. But I know you're looking ahead to the year. You don't want to look up too far back, but I'm sure this is a fun week to get your guys back, because a lot of them are gone, and you're trying to replace those pieces for this upcoming season.
We got most of the guys coming back. I think Clay Dungan and Jake Baines are in instructional league with Kansas City, so they won't make it. But we're in the coaching world, Luke. Those players, they got to remember this for life. We got to go back to next year. We got to get going. So it does seem like it's been a long time, like you said a minute ago, but it'll be nice to get the guys back. We're excited about it. Be nice for our young guys here to get to meet some of those guys and visit with them as well.
The importance of having that time, as you mentioned, as a coach, you got to keep looking ahead. You got to look at the next guys you're bringing in and try to build on what you did this past year. Because as great as this past year was, you also don't want that to be the peak. You want to continue to raise the bar. You want to continue to get back to that level. Is that a tough balance as a coach at times to when you enter a time right now? Because you guys, people may think, oh, the season's not till January. Well, you're in the middle of fall ball. You're going through practices right now. So just that juggling act as you try to move forward.
It is. I know in talking with Coach Lansing and Coach Mallory as well, I think sometimes you're too hard on a group early on because you just came out of this area over here where you had a very mature group, an older team, and you expect all these young guys in diapers to step in and do the same thing, and it's just not reality. And I said that to my staff the other day. I think I'm being a little hard on these guys, trying to start where we left off last year, which is what you hope, but the reality is you don't start there. You start back at the beginning point and try to work forward to get where you need to be.
What made that team last year just so much fun for you as a coach? And you mentioned, I know you're hard on this current group, but you were hard on the group last year too, as you are each and every year. What did you like, though, even though in the time and the moment you got to be that hard-nosed coach, but each and every day when you filled up that lineup card, what brought you so much joy in what that team did a year ago?
Well, it wasn't so much the games. There were no issues off the field. Those guys were all good, mature students. They were just good people. They didn't need someone to direct them day after day after day. They kind of knew what they were supposed to do every day. They came to the field, and if we weren't ready to roll yet, they were out there doing something. They weren't standing around the dugout, and it was just such a mature group. It's the kind of group that I said you may never have again. You don't know in this coaching profession. I mean, and they really came together. You know, we talk a lot about the bus rides and the time we spent on a bus, but it's one of the closer groups we've had as well. And I judge a group by how many sleepless nights I have. And my wife will vouch that when we were kind of scuffling a little bit later in the year, and I was concerned that we were going to maybe be an at-large team, it was kind of stressful, and I felt like I carried some of that and actually probably was a detriment to our team through some of that, just that pressure you go through. And now with this group, and Ellison standing back there, last night my wife rolls over at 2 in the morning and I've got a bat swinging it in the bedroom trying to figure out a drill for Ellison, and he happens to be here. So she said, "What are you doing?" So this group's caused me some sleeping issues.
Well, hopefully those sleeping issues can be resolved once you get to the spring. Head coach Mitch Hannes is our guest, Indiana State baseball head coach. This weekend, it's homecoming here in Terre Haute. We'll talk about Indiana State and Western Illinois as we progress throughout the show on the football gridiron. You know, Coach Mallory talked about it too, and his respect level that he has for yourself. I know that's vice versa. Why do you feel it's so important to have such a strong – I asked this to Coach Town when he was on the show a couple weeks ago. It doesn't matter if it's football, basketball. I always see you around. And even when your group is going through your season, I know you're busy and around your group, but you still try to make time to go around and talk to coaches. Why is that such an important part of, even though maybe you want to focus on your sport, your team, and what you're doing each and every day, but how reaching out can be just such a big impact and have an impact?
Well, I think for the head coaches, I think every head coach would agree if we were to say that we carry things that you really can't speak to others about. I mean, you can't speak to your other coaches, your assistants, your players. I mean, you wear things as a head coach that you really can't talk to people about. And I think because we walk that same lane, we have a camaraderie in the beginning. And I think the other thing here that's really, really a separator, the reality is football and basketball are the big sports on all campuses. That's a reality that will never change. I mean, that's just the way it is. And we have two of the most humble human beings that are in those positions, and that transitions a staff. It's when those positions are held by very good people, and it makes people want to come and be around. So I think it's the people.
You look towards this year for your group. I know you still got a busy fall season upcoming, but let's talk about the Valley from a baseball perspective. Last year, your group, of course, goes to Nashville. The only team you lose to in that regional was the team that ultimately went on to win the College World Series in Vanderbilt. Illinois State made a regional final. Dallas Baptist made a regional final. Yeah, everyone kind of understands why the SEC gets a lot of attention, and you mentioned that in your post-game press conference after the loss to Vanderbilt. How much did a year ago, even though you've played in this league when Wichita was running it, when you guys were also having some success there in the late 80s, but what makes this league so good in baseball, and why when teams have success in the postseason, it may surprise the national pundits, but you guys as coaches that compete against each other each and every week, you're not surprised to see Coach Holmes' crew go to the tournament and do well, and Coach Hefner's team go to the tournament and do well, because you guys got to compete against them each and every weekend.
Yeah, and I think obviously in baseball, if you get that one guy on the mound, you can change things quickly. You can level the field very quickly if you have that one guy, and I think that's always a benefit. But I think the Valley's just different. You know, it's a hard-nosed, get after it league. I know in speaking to a gentleman that was just let go at Wichita this past year, he said, you know, I had no idea, and he was coming from the SEC, how hard it was to win games in the Valley. And obviously Wichita State has a lot of resources, but I think it's just the fact that we've had a lot of good teams and a lot of good players, and obviously Missouri State and Dallas Baptist have propped us up for the last 8 years or whatever, and Wichita did it a long time. So I think what we've always had that team to kind of prop our league up, kind of like North Dakota State does in football. I mean, you have that team that's at the top level every year, and that just changes a league, in my opinion. You got to go with them or you're in a lot of trouble.
Last year, it just seemed like you kind of knew what your lineup card at least generally would look like. I know a few times from now and then you throw in a new name. This year, do you have any idea what your lineup card will look like? Or do you kind of go through now and go, oh, yeah, Fagan, Rodriguez.
Did I tell you,
those guys are gone.
Did I tell you I was up swinging a bat at 2 last night in my bedroom? Yeah. I have no clue. We do. We got a little bit of an idea, but there's so much time to go.
Yeah.
And these guys are so young. This is probably the most freshmen we've had in quite some time. So it's going to take them time. I mean, they're still learning the pace at which this college stuff works.
Well, one of the good reasons, though, or one of the good things I should say that you appear to have coming back is you're going to have a lot of arms that do return from your group last year that had success. The importance, though, for those guys to not just stay the same, of course, in what they did a year ago, but to maybe rise to new roles. Well,
I think if you look at the guys that are back and the guys that were out that didn't pitch last year, that pitched for us in previous years, we probably have 7 or 8 guys that are as good as anybody in the league in terms of their 7 or 8. But I think obviously we got to figure out ways to score runs so we don't put too much pressure on that group. But I know our club already is impressed by that group. Our coaches are impressed by that group, and hopefully, again, that's an area you hope guys stay healthy and pitch well all year. If you do, you can compete with a lot of people.
For those that may not know, what's the schedule like for you guys over the next couple of weeks, and kind of when you wrap up your fall season and ultimately take a little bit of a break before you begin what will be your main season once your guys start getting back in January?
Well, the way we're going, we may have some ice freezing on faces before we get done this fall, but we're going to go about 3 more weeks with our traditional fall season. We've got Austin Peay coming in here to play we won a couple games with the NCAA, and they let us have them, but they're like spring training games, so they really haven't solved the problem, but we get to see guys with another team. So we got that coming up in the middle of October, actually next weekend. So, and then we'll go 2 more weeks and kind of start wrapping it up.
Coach, once again, we appreciate you taking time to join us here on the show, and I know you're a guy that likes to look ahead, but enjoy the weekend with all the guys back, and you get to add a ring there to your hand.
I do, but the Bengals are 0-5, and I don't see any light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, I wasn't going to ask you about the Bengals, but we'll keep it at that. We'll leave your frustration.
Well, the bad thing is I lost a bet and had to wear a Steelers jersey in practice last week or whatever it was. So times are really bad.
Is there photo evidence of it?
No.
Oh man, we should have got that. Coach, thanks so much.
Thanks,
Always
Lou.
appreciate the time. That was head coach Mitch Hannes. Join us when we return here on the show. Deion Broomfield is our guest.
This is Kurt Mallory, and you're listening to Indiana State football on WIBQ 97.9 FM.
It's the Indiana State Coaches Show live from 7th and Elm Bar and Grill. Big thank you to head coach Mitch Hannes for hopping on and join us talking about his baseball group. We now jump back to the football gridiron. Deion Broomfield, our good friend. Coach Broomy from the secondary, the defensive back room, is our guest. Coach, always good to catch up with you, buddy. I know it wasn't the result you guys were looking for this past weekend as we talked with Coach Mallory, but what makes you optimistic that this group, not just your group on the back end of that defense, but the whole team can get a really big bounce back week against Western Illinois?
I think we got great kids that they love to compete. You know, they show it every day in practice. They show it in meetings, and they stick together. So, you know, when you got that type of atmosphere and that type of, you know, environment for your kids, I think that, you know, it leads to success. So I think that's what, you know, they're looking forward to get to on Saturday.
One of those guys is Makai, who's here tonight. We'll talk to Makai in the next segment. But just overall, for those that don't get the chance to be with your group darn near every day like I am, what makes your group so much fun, just in terms of the meeting room, being able to coach them and be able to work with them each and every day?
I mean, it's just the type of kids they are. You know, they're a fun bunch to work with, but they're competitive, and they understand how to go to work, when to go to work, and you know, I know that they're the type of personalities. So, you know, for me, we kind of mix together on the type of people we are, and every day it's a different day, but it's the same type of work. And you know, when we go to work, and you know, that's what I appreciate about them.
We've been fortunate to be together now for 3 years. You were here in the first year under Coach Mallory, and now, of course, here in year 3. For someone that's been here every step since day one, what's the biggest thing you point to as, man, I'm really proud that we've been able to change this. I'm really glad that I know the wins and everything you guys want to continue to rise and get better in terms of on the field. But in terms of how you guys go in day to day, what's been the biggest change that you've really enjoyed since day one to now?
I don't really think it's been a big change. I think it's just been a consistent message, you know, from Coach Mallory. And when you got a consistent message from him, you know, through us as the assistant coaches, that, you know, every day we're trying to reach a certain goal, and until we get there, you know, that approach is not going to change. And I think our kids buy into that. And every day you just see the culture of how we work. And the way we work, it just continues to get better, the attention to detail. But, you know, it's been one consistent message since we got here, and I think, you know, our kids focus on that message.
When you go through maybe a tough game like you guys do this past weekend, how is it important to have a guy that leads it all, that one consistent message never changes regardless of if the highs are at its highest or the lows are at its lowest?
I mean, it makes it easy, you know, that, you know, you're going to go back to work on a Sunday, on a Monday, you're going to get back on the practice field on Tuesday, and you're going to go to work on Wednesday, and, you know, you got a set schedule. You don't have time to dwell on what happened. You got to look at it, you got to learn from it, and you got to just, you know, get back to work. And, you know, we got next Saturday coming up, you know, and it's a season within a season. So that approach, it doesn't change, and, you know, whether it's a win or a loss, we're going to go back to work.
Football seasons are long and filled with so much emotion from a positive perspective, and sometimes can be a grueling perspective and a humbling perspective. But what is the key to kind of, regardless of those highs, regardless of those lows, to have that consistent message? But for your group, what is the biggest thing that you want to see throughout a season that, you know, okay, you know, maybe the result wasn't exactly what we want on a Saturday, but I'm seeing these areas, I know our group is still going in the right direction?
Well, I want to see, you know, specifically just talking within my group, is just guys compete, you know, every single, you know, snap, every series, every quarter, competing at a very high level. And we want to be physical, we want to be disciplined, you know, but, you know, I want to see my guys compete and have fun. You know, that's what it's about. So I think, you know, week in and week out, as long as I see those guys improving, and obviously we want to work on technique, we want to work on our eyes, but just being physical, being disciplined, I think that's just, you know, you want to see that week in, week out, and continue to get better throughout the season.
A lot of the staff is here tonight, and I know you guys together is a really special group, and the continuity you guys have and the friendships and the relationships you guys have. It's been a question I've asked each assistant that I've had on the show. I'll continue that with you. What is the one thing, I know it's hard to say one thing, but what do you cherish most just about your gig here, and why it's special to be a part of this staff?
It's the people, and obviously, you know, when you surround yourself with good people that you can trust, that, you know, have, you know, not their best interest, but the entire team's best interest, I think it makes it a lot easier, where people check their egos at the door. And, you know, whatever needs to be done for us to be successful, I think each coach will do whatever it takes for us to be successful as a team. So that makes it easy, you know what I mean, that you're surrounded by guys that, you know, you can trust, you can go to battle with.
I know you also have some battles with Tyler Funk on FIFA from time to time.
Yep.
You guys will pick up the gaming
fake
sticks
news
from time to time.
He spreaded fake news last week about him beating me in FIFA, and I just want to come out and say that did not happen. And, you know, I don't know where he falsified claims.
Where he got that?
I don't know.
He's got to check his sources, huh?
Yeah.
When's the last match? When's the last time?
The last time I beat him
Yeah.
was probably we had a recruiting deal, our barbecue. Yep.
Okay.
I know it was at the barbecue before we left, for summer vacation. I beat him twice. Just another day. I don't know. I can't.
Tyler's really wishing right now there was a crowd mic that I had, and he could probably have a response.
I can't hear
from
him
the
right
back.
now.
Yeah,
So
we
I
can't,
got headphones
we can't
on.
hear just like he couldn't hear you last week.
Exactly.
So the tables have turned. Looking back towards now on the field, what was the biggest thing you felt that South Dakota taught your secondary in terms? Okay, here's an area where we need to grow and improve on it to move on in this year.
Communication. We got to make sure we're all on the same page. From the front seven to the back seven. I mean, we got to make sure we're on the same page. Pre-snap and post-snap. And then from that, once the ball snap, we got to make sure that, our eyes in the right spot, our angles to the ball are correct, and we got to down the ball in space. Good teams are going to put their best players in position in the open field, and we got to be able to down the ball on the perimeter. So we got to make sure we can do that on a consistent basis. And when those opportunities present themselves, we got to take advantage of them.
One of your guys, as I mentioned, is here tonight, Makai, who will talk in the next segment a little bit more about it too. I know we've talked about just in passing of Makai's story and everything he's had to personally fight through during his time here at Indiana State. What's it been for you, for someone who saw him as a freshman, really flourish as a freshman, then go through that tough year a year ago where he couldn't play at all, to now see him back out on the field? I know you got to coach him each and every day, and sometimes you may not be able to say a lot of how much that means to you as a coach to see someone fight through all of that. But for you, what does that mean, and what that means in terms of a example for the guys in those rooms, and an example for the guys in that locker room of what Makai's been through and how he continues to persevere and play for you guys each and every week?
He loves football. I mean, he truly loves the game of football. And last year it hurt him not to be out there with his brothers, and to see him just battle. We had countless conversations. He's done everything that he's supposed to do to get up to this point, and it's I love to see him out there on the field competing, because he doesn't, he had the game taken away from him. So now it's, you got to drag him off the field, and to see that type of character, to see that type of mindset, is just seeing him grow from a freshman to where he's at now, and just keep building up those leadership skills and his technique on the field, but just to see him attack the day each day. And for a guy to have the game taken away from him, to not knowing if he was going to be able to play again, to be in the role that he's in now, it just speaks to his character, and those are the type of kids we have.
And the other side of that too is, you said the game was taken away from him, and it was. But the best part about it was everyone still knew who Makai was a year ago because he was there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was what separates him from a lot. There's been times where, whether it's here or elsewhere, where you've been a part of a football team where a guy gets hurt or maybe out for the year, maybe they're not around as much as they normally are. But Makai was. He was still in your meeting rooms.
Absolutely.
And he was still learning. How important was that for him in terms of, yes, he probably knew he wasn't going to be able to play a year ago, but yet mentally for you, he was still clocking in each and every week.
Oh, it's huge. When you can have a kid around and he's in the meeting rooms, he's getting coached, just like everybody else is that's playing on the field, but now it's just from a mental aspect, and he, digests all the information that's being taught, and he was able to do that. You can see him, he'll get up on the board and try to draw the whole defense, but that's just the type of kid he is, where he enjoys trying to learn and figuring those different type of things out. But to see him grow in that aspect was huge, and having him in the room was huge, just because he can learn from other guys' mistakes.
Now, this may be a hard question for you to answer. I know Coach Hannis brought up his Bengals earlier and how they're 0 right now, but do you have any idea who the favorite NFL team is for Makai? Because it seems like he wears a different NFL jersey on the day and kind of flip-flops between his teams.
He has OBJ jersey on right now underneath his Indiana State sweater. So I don't know if he's going for the Browns or OBJ tonight, but whichever. I don't know.
I know it's a hard thing to figure out for sure from Makai's perspective from time to time. I'm sure he'll have a rebuttal when he comes on here in the next segment. Final question to you, Coach Perea, before you let you go. Biggest thing for your group to have success this Saturday and to kind of get the good vibes back against, I know a team and a program you're familiar with when you coach there, even though different staff, I know different guys necessarily. but also still some guys who, of course, were carryover that you knew.
You know, they're going to be a tough physical team, so we got to make sure that we come in with the mindset that we got to be able to match what they bring to the table, because they're going to come in here and try to punch us in the mouth, and we got to be able to respond and set the tempo and set the tone. But our guys, we got to be able to, you know, stay on top, not give up, you know, the deep ball. And then, like I talked about, you know, previously was, you know, our pre and post snap communication is going to be huge in this game. And then from there, you know, we got to be able to execute on the, you know, play-by-play, series by series, and never get too high, never get too low, and you know, we'll see what happens.
Will Logan and Brady Wilson be available at all on the back end of the defense this weekend if you needed them? Would Coach Wilson even allow those two to go in the play for you?
I think they want to throw the ball. I think they want to be Brady wants to be a quarterback. I don't know if he wants to be in the back end. Right?
Who knows? That may be a topic of conversation tonight in the Wilson household. Coach Broomy, I always appreciate the time, man.
Appreciate
Thanks so
it.
much for
Yep.
coming on.
Thank you.
That was Dion Broomfield. We're going to take a break. When we come back, Mekhi Ware is our guest here on the Indiana State Coaches Show. You're listening to the Indiana State Coaches Show live from 7th and L. It's the Indiana State Coaches Show live from 7th and Elm Bar and Grill. Thank you to Dion Broomfield for joining us a segment ago. We still got Coach Mallory coming on to preview Western Illinois and homecoming on Saturday. But now, hey, it's why everybody's here. Mekhi Ware is our guest here on the Indiana State Coaches Show. Mekhi, how you doing? You ready for the game tonight? The big Monday Night Football game?
Yeah, I'm ready for it.
You're doing all right. You don't want to bring too much attention to that. I agree. Mekhi, though, how are you guys ready to just get back to practice tomorrow after I know a result that nobody liked over the weekend in Vermillion, South Dakota?
I think everybody's ready. It was a disappointing loss. I don't think anybody was too proud about how they played, but really it's one game, like the coaches say, and I mean, we lost, so we got to get back to work this week.
You and I have talked time and time and kind of hinted at it with Coach Broomy in his previous segment of how far of a journey it's been for you in terms of just getting back and playing. To those that maybe don't know your background and your story of what you went through a year ago, and a quick synopsis a little bit, what's been the past year been like for you in trying to get back in the football shape, but also to get into a position to where you could play?
Well, last year it was tough. Just, I mean, from a standpoint of not being out there and being able to play, it was tough. But I didn't always get down because I knew I will be able to play again, and we were having a lot of success on the field, and I was happy seeing my corners group do well and ultimately the team do well. But just being able to be cleared again, that was the best part about it, really. And getting back into shape and the mojo of football was, I mean, that comes with me because I've been playing my whole life, really. So it wasn't too difficult to get back to football and scheme and everything up. But just being cleared again, that was the best part about it.
When you were finally cleared, because it was basically, how long was it in terms of when you were ruled out to being ruled you're good to go? I mean, because it was a long time. I know it probably felt like 5 years to you.
Yeah. It was almost a full year, actually. Yeah. So, I mean, before Kansas, I had a countdown. Before Kansas, the last game I played was versus Northern Iowa, 2017, and it was 568 days since the last time I played before Kansas.
You mentioned just those 568 days, and Coach Broomy kind of alluded to it. Even though you were still trying to fight and still trying to play and get on the field a year ago, why were you around as much as you did, and how has that helped you now as you're playing now? You're like, man, I kind of remember this from a year ago. Even though I didn't play, I was able to pull from that.
I mean, during last year, I never knew when the blood pressure was going to go down or not. So I was always expecting that next week to play. And just being in a room, it was a lot of dark times at that time. But being in a room with my teammates in the corners group from last year, it was fun. And it took my mind off a lot of stuff because they always had my back, Coach Broom and the other players. And then this year, just I mean, I learned a lot from that corner group. I mean, some people came back. I mean, Rondell was there; he's left, but I learned a lot from Rondell and other guys like Caleb, Tuck, and yeah, so that's about it.
Coach Broomfield brought up how one of the biggest things that you guys learned over the weekend was communication in terms of talking with each other throughout the defense. From your perspective, what was the biggest thing that you took away from this weekend and where, okay, this is where we need to go to get better and play at a level that we know we can?
I think this weekend we got humbled. We didn't expect that to happen, but we definitely got humbled this weekend. And basically, yeah, the communication wasn't there on certain plays, which it put their offense in the advantage of our defense. But I mean, I think we're a good defense, and we haven't proved everything, but I feel like the 2 games before last showed what type of defense we could be, and we look to get back to where we was 2 weeks ago.
You guys as players, I'm sure, fans from time to time will say, man, it's kind of frustrating when you have such good performances 2 weeks in a row and then not perform to the level that you did. But just, I know that's even tougher as players. How do you fight through that of when you guys take steps forward and you go, man, we're really clicking on all cylinders? And you guys had a good week of preparation. And like you mentioned, you went to Vermillion going, man, we're going to win a game here today. How do you yourself get over that disappointment and the humbled feelings like you mentioned and move forward and make sure that you guys can focus on Western Illinois this weekend? I know there's a lot of football left to be played with 7 more games.
Like I said, no one was happy about how we played this Saturday, but we used it as motivation this week to get back and get ready for Western Illinois. But yeah, it's like I said, we was 1 game, and it's not the whole season, and we're eager to get back on the field and get ready for Western. My bad.
It's you just get the trust me, I've been every directional school, seems like. When you think of how long it's been since you played, and we touched up on that, a little bit earlier, has playing the game been even more fun to you this year compared to when you played 2 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, 2 years ago we were losing. Now we're winning, so it's a lot funner when you win. But last year was fun too, even being out, because seeing your teammates make plays on the field. But obviously, it's a lot more funner when you're on the field making plays with your teammates. So yeah.
I know you were thrilled for your teammates, and yeah. I've asked you this before in a conversation we actually had on our radio pregame for Kansas. But how hard was that for you to just watch those games, even though you're stoked and excited that the group was able to win 5 in a row last year, but all you could do was stand on the sideline and watch?
I mean, it was hard. I mean, you want to be out there, you want to play, because you come here to play football, but I mean, like I said, I was happy for everybody. The success we had from my freshman year to last year, it was a lot of fun just seeing them play and proving that people wrong, and that's the best part about it, when people are counting you out and then you're proving people wrong week after week after week. So yeah, it was fun.
Despite you being still, a sophomore in terms of your athletic career, as you talk, and I think everybody even here can sense it, you obviously bring a lot of experience from your time in 2017, even not playing in 2018 and being around. Do you feel that you're starting to develop more into that leadership role and be comfortable with your voice around not just your position group, but also throughout the team, despite maybe still being young in terms of where you're at in terms of your athletic status, in terms of your label, in terms of a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior? Do you feel that you're starting to get more comfortable in terms of those leadership attributes and roles?
Yeah, I feel like I'm getting as weeks go by, I feel like I'm getting more and more comfortable. I mean, everybody's open in the room, but I feel like I'm opening up just a little more and more. I mean, I can sense that people and the players in our group, they listen. They listen to me, and I just gotta keep talking to them and bringing them along. So that's the biggest part about it, bringing people along. Any person or leader can talk about what they do or just lead by example, but it takes a different person to take them with you as you're leading the way, to bring them underneath the wing. So I'm getting, like I said, as weeks go by, I'm starting to open up a little more and more.
I know this may be a silly question to ask you in your interview, but you kind of hinted at that you're a big OBJ fan.
Yeah.
Odell Beckham Jr.
Big OBJ fan.
You may have a jersey on underneath your sweater here tonight, may or may not. If you had to go one-on-one with him, would you be able to shut him down at all? Do you have confidence in yourself? I know he's a savvy veteran, and that's probably, maybe not realistic, but would you take Mekhi Ware in that battle?
Yeah, out of 5 reps, I think I get 5 out of 5.
You think so? The expression of Coach Broomfield, I don't know. I don't know if he is resounding in that confidence. But you have it. That's all that matters, though. You got to have that internally, right?
Yeah, I think I'll go 5 out of 5. Really, Luke.
That's impressive, Mekhi. Really? I will give you those props. Maybe we can reach out to the Cleveland Browns and we can maybe make that happen. Would you?
Yeah.
Would you be okay with that?
I would be perfectly fine with that.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully there's no compliance issues with that. We'll check with Joel in our office and Tanya as well. We'll go down that road. But Mekhi, number one, it's great to see you back in a football uniform. And number two, thanks so much for coming on the show. Appreciate you, buddy. Once again, that was Mekhi Ware. We're going to take a break. When we come back, it's head coach Curt Mallory to wrap up the show. You're listening to the Indiana State Coaches Show live from 7th and Elm. Big thank you to all of our guests tonight, Mekhi Ware, Deion Broomfield, Mitch Hannes of Indiana State Baseball, and head coach Curt Mallory join us. Coach, just as we put the finishing touches, just what are you most looking forward to about homecoming? It's a great tradition here at Indiana State. It's always the most packed football game in terms of attendance, and also knowing you're going to have a really good challenge against a head coach I know you have a lot of respect for in Jared Elliott.
Well, absolutely, but we're ready to get back on the field tomorrow and get back to playing. And we know we can play a lot better. We've got a heck of a challenge this weekend. We expect a great crowd, so it's going to be beautiful weather, so look forward to getting back out there and playing at a great stadium.
You always tell your team this week, and you've told them during your last 2 years, you got a job to do, and that's go win the football game. I know that's the job each and every week, but sometimes in homecoming where there can be some more distractions, there's a lot of things going around on campus. I'm sure that's a message that you'll probably relay to your guys throughout the week.
Yeah, I mean, homecoming will be important to them when they're my age, coming back, 10, 20, 30 years from now. But their job right now is to be a student first, athlete second, play the game, and do their job, and get back out there tomorrow and get back to playing Sycamore football the way that we know how to play.
You say your age. You're not that old, are you? Come on.
Just talking to Coach Lansing about how old we are.
Well, he's got a few more gray hairs than you do. I'm starting to match him, though. I mean, the gray hairs are coming in on me, too. Coach, really appreciate the time coming out tonight. I know you always enjoy bringing the staff over, and let's talk about a big win next Monday night.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Luke.
Once again, that was head coach Curt Mallory. That does it for the Indiana State Coaches Show here from 7th and Elm Bar and Grill. Reminder, we will be with you on Saturday with the Pepsi Countdown the Kickoff starting at noon on WIBQ right here. We will also have the call on TV this weekend as well, so you can catch Brian and I on the TV call on ESPN starting at 1 o'clock Saturday. For the head coach, Curt Mallory, for Deion Broomfield, for Mekhi Ware, and Indiana State Baseball head coach Mitch Hannes, for our in-studio engineer, Dennis Porter, I am Luke Martin, saying so long from 7th and Elm Bar and Grill. This has been the Indiana State Coaches Show. We will talk to you on homecoming this Saturday.